here we are at Marengo, still fairly early in the morning. Not much has happened. The Austrian forces have deployed and smashed into the French line and captured Pedrabona because villages are weird, but were thrown back elsewhere along the line. The Cav positioning itself will be able to throw itself in on another charge for whatever effect that has. Doesn't seem to be a hell of a lot, except now the Austrians have gotten their artillery deployed right at the front line. By pushing forward, they were able to unlimber their guns at close range, and now they may be threatening that line so much that it has to fall back. We've got the left corps, or wing, pushing its way up to Castel Ciriolo. Latrin, no orders. I could roll for an initiative or something. That would be useful to get him there, but he's so beaten up from Montebello, even though I cheated a little bit to make his wrecked statuses a little less than they would be otherwise. His force really isn't a functional force. Now, like the Austrians, we're able to reorganize a little bit. There's actually a fairly good chance that Latrin would be reorganized. The only reason he wasn't is that the historical losses at Montebello weren't what I got. Which means I have probably too strong a force right here up front at Marengo and not enough here. And it's sort of hey, these different divisions are covering the approaches while Napoleon comes on the board, waiting for him to come. I think possibly playing the Montebello first and then having the results translate over. I think that has too rigid a system for putting things into play as to what's going to be here. Probably was a bad idea. I probably should have played the historical battle of Marengo instead, but that's okay. Now, it's taken me a long time to get through a few turns, and I went through a little bit of detail in the last half turn. That is just a problem with the version 3 rolls of the system. The only thing that was really, really complex in the version 2 and previous was the Cav charges. The infantry combat was much more intuitive what was happening. It felt like you were just seeing an extension of the normal fire back and forth morale checks. I feel like this is more accurate of a representation, but I'm not sure I'm willing to play it. Which may or may not have been my feeling when I first looked at the system. The problem is, I kind of like detailed representations, but I don't feel like this is giving me the narrative detail that I liked from the old system. It's giving me these two things have gotten together and now it's kind of abstracted what happens. Did they engage in actual close combat or did they just shoot at short range? What's going on? I don't know. I rolled on a chart and got some numbers, which in and of itself wouldn't be bad, except that the cost on those charts is high in terms of the mental mechanical aspects of the game. Now, but for comparison, the amount of detail that I have to go into here is not, too different from, say, La Grande Guerre, right? If you do a battle in La Grande Guerre, and you might do several of them over the course of a turn, it's a fairly hefty undertaking. Or Empires in Arms. What's different, though, is the lack of the narrative, right? The La Grande Guerre battles, because of the narrative of the system, end up gelling in my mind, at least. I can't speak for others. Other people, work with this better than I do, I think. Whereas for me, it's a look up the sequence every damn time, look up the modifiers every time. Anyway, let's get to the French turn, and I'll roll that random event. And we're not going to get one, so no core defense failure checks in this system. So now I have to pretty much do my offensive fire and then decide what the hell I'm doing here. I got one of the Austrian cannon with defensive fire. Yeah, I got skirmishers too. How many? What's all the way under here? That's not me. So I got one skirmisher I can play. But I gotta tell you, I fire the gun and I immediately want to roll, I take some damage, I want to roll a morale check for those units. That's sort of the standard, right? That's what I'm used to in the CWB. Fire, oh, I got a hit, let's check morale, let's see if it stands. That's not here. That's not here. It's baked into the chart, and again, it's just, it's hard. It's hard to switch over from that. Because that fire morale check, and then in the case of melee, push, but the fire morale check thing is just standard throughout the whole system until you get to the cav charges. The cav charges, like the rest, like combat throughout this entire system, is sort of this, everything's kind of clumped together to make it as quick as possible if you had everything memorized. Like if a computer was doing it all, play it on Vassal or whatever, I'm sure it goes much, much easier. Ah, boy. I withdrew this unit, it got disorganized by fire. I chose not to pull the line extension back. Mainly because I'd have to limber the guns. That's a formation change, I can shoot at that. I'd have to leave square. That's a formation change, I can leave that. Square is going to be painful facing artillery, but I just feel locked in here, unable to withdraw. And again, that's a good thing. It should be hard to get out of close combat like this. The way out is often to break. But, it's one of the facets. The C leader, Chamberlain or whatever, Chamberlain, ran back up here to take command there. Victor's here trying to rally and failed, and that's going to put me to 8 a.m. on the Austrian side. And it looks to me like the Austrian plan is going to go very, very well. I'm going to be writing orders with Milas this turn. Consider the army bolted down here for now. Under version 3 rules, he has to be bolted. And yeah, he's going to write orders to try to sweep down. If that starts to happen, Victor is probably going to have to pull out of Marengo and fall back. And then I start to look for, hey, what's worth holding, man? There's a lot of different roads that get me to this big 5-point space. Yeah. No random events, no command, no attack failures. K is got a wrecked unit, so they actually have to roll at least a 6 now on 2 dice. So that's kind of a big deal. Milas issued his orders, oral, and engage, sweep through the Castle Ceriolo and attack Marengo from the north. However, Milas isn't very good at writing orders. I'm not very good at rolling dice. That was a 14 on like the 3 table, which got me a D6, which means it may be a long time before Ott moves down there. We'll see. So fire was mostly ineffective. I did knock out one of the French guns here. I liked what they were doing with the Montebello set by keeping track of the gun hits over here, so I'm starting to do that. I don't know why I'm darkening in the one over to the right when everything else goes left to right. Just being stupid, I guess. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. I've got the gun points under there as well, but it'll help me understand what's going on. Now, I'm beginning a cav charge against this unit. It's just formed square. I'm just trying to break up this front force. If I can cause enough problems that I can recover a little bit before I push on. Didn't do much. Force the French to form square. That means I'll get at least one shot against them in square. I pulled the one gun back around the background, trying to get it into here, I guess. Although that's going to cause opportunity fire if I don't charge in. And I'm kind of reluctant to charge in, but charging in makes sense if I'm screening deployment of guns. Otherwise, just recovering. You can see Ott has moved into place here. I figure he can get out this far, screening Castle Siriolo with his old orders. I don't know. What were they? Yeah. He's just got to stay within range of his something. I don't know what. But yeah, and it doesn't make much difference because the commanders are going to end up bolted down in the city itself, I think, and everything will be in range. I am too fatigued, even just the consideration of action, to do another turn right away. And again, this is a small battle compared to Austerlitz. There's something about that sort of mechanical plink, plink, plink at each other that doesn't bother me at all. It takes time. I have to work my way down the line. Certainly when I'm playing on 9 maps like I was at Leipzig, it's painful as hell. But on anything this size, it's really just fairly easy to deal with. And coming down to the, hey, I have to juggle all these numbers and all these different charts, and things are happening simultaneously that I have to keep track of the numbers for at the same, on 2 charts at the same time. When I start getting to stuff like that, I'm getting to a much, much heavier system. Now, the external, hey, what's the big picture? That's still showing up just fine. It's more painful to get there for me. And I will get used to this. With all the focus on the cav charge coming in, I forget why I'm doing it, at least in part, which is to cause an opportunity fire when I form into square. I still get the fire against a square, during the normal fire, but I should be getting that twice, once during opportunity fire, once during normal. I forgot to do that. No random event. I'm essentially terrified to do anything with my forces. But equally, I forget to unblow my cav. That I can try. I know I forgot it this last time, so we got a B morale up there, which is like 4, and there don't seem to be any modifiers. And then the other one's a 3, I think. No, it's a C, it's a 5. Okay, so neither of them on blow, but that's... that may change my mood. Maybe I want to fall into line formation, but I'm still giving the enemy 2 shots in that case. That's the problem. I've got very little I can do. I could throw skirmishers forward, but the artillery can target the skirmishers, if I recall correctly. Again, gotta go look that up, because it's not, it's not my normal situation. So it wouldn't make sense that they can. So I'm like, wait, was there something? Because I remember there being something where I was talking about, well, that's because the balls don't bounce through them. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe you can't. You can, or at least I found something. You can target the hex containing the harassing skirmishers. Okay. So if I put the skirmishers up there, I'm risking something that's better, that I want to lose less than the regular unit. But at least it's not in the square. Jeez. Yeah, I don't fucking know what to do here. I really don't. And I can't back out of the hex, leave the skirmishers there, and say the skirmishers are covering. That doesn't work in this system, although I feel like it should. Puzzling over, hey, what do I do? What happens? And trying to figure out and pull into my head, what would happen if I do A? What would happen if I do B? What fires does that create? What opportunity actions does that generate? Because there's so many of them. That all makes me feel completely paralyzed in terms of being able to make decisions. And that's why this is costing so fucking much to play, is there's no sort of, maybe I'll get a clue as I start making it through more of the series, if I can stomach it. But I don't have patterns that I can just reach out and say, I do this, with the old CWB, yeah, but this isn't the first time I'm facing this game, right? This isn't the first time I'm facing even version 3, and I'm still stumped. It's like it's not even the first time I'm facing version 3 in this week, I still feel like every decision is just so fraught with so many different impacts in a way that I'm not used to with war games. It's the kind of thinking that paralyzes me in some Euros. I don't like that. And now, some of this is just contingent on the Napoleonic aspect, but it's also how this system is expressing itself in a way that it didn't used to. It felt a lot more, but again, probably incorrectly so. I'm going to try to do an Austrian turn here. But yeah, I mean, the French are just standing there in square, getting shot up, and the idea of withdrawing just sounds too painful. But the 101 is down to an A-size unit now, and nearly wrecked, and it's split in 2 hexes, so they're both Bs. So I don't know, maybe it's time to push in. Countervailing aspect of it. Maybe it's time to push in. Yeah, but I got the advantage right now. Let me just keep hitting them with artillery. They'll just vaporize. The crux, the initiative is on the Austrians right now. This is when they have their definite advantage before Napoleon comes in with the guards and Dessax and whatever. Well, Dessax is rather late comparatively. So, maybe it is time to try to punch my way through and not just stand there. I mean, there's not a lot of losses happening off the artillery fire compared to what will happen if I charge. But I may wipe out my divisions if I charge. Though. First of all, K got a corps attack or a divisional attack stoppage. They're going to pull away and they're going to take additional stragglers and be in worse shape. But the second is the left wing it got over its D6 already, and we'll be moving right now. Preparatory gunfire sent the French line into collapse. 1 unit, pretty much gone now. With the stragglers from the hits, it's down to 2 boxes in the C column at this point. I think this may be over pretty quickly. No, I mean, you got to wait for those additional forces to come in. But the defense of Marengo is really in doubt. And, I could roll for initiative down here for Watrin, Murat. Murat's probably a good idea to roll and get him in there. I don't know what his orders are going to be, though. Move up there and try to help Victor out to wherever Victor's going to retreat to. I don't know. Right, and even with these few pieces, only this far into the turn, and I need to run down and pee. I've been up here enough time. What we're going to take care of is a charge. O'Reilly leading a charge of his right-wing cav against those routed guns. We're going to take them out. Well, that's interesting. You can't charge guns. Right? Against cav, against infantry, or artillery. So the defender has to make a stand check. Well, they're going to fail. They are, I don't know, probably C. We don't have a morale listed on these. I think artillery are C's automatically, but I'm not sure. We got anything on these things? Yeah, all the artillery, I think, are C's. So that's a 3. I'm routed, I lose, I fail. Okay. That means charge is successful. Roll artillery opportunity fire. Check combat results. Follow on charge. Otherwise, charge ends. So I would normally roll here, but I don't know that that's the case. And I'm going to have to look that up because I think I roll on the gun loss table, even though they're not limbering. But I'm not sure. Kind of a key issue. I can't tell how long a turn's going to take. You know, I didn't intend to do much. I was probably just going to fire, although maybe I launch an attack. But, you know, one turn takes very little time. I'm used to, hey, swing the cav around, threaten something, get off a couple shots, and then we go away. But now this one, because the line collapsed, everything is moving. Because these are active, everything's moving. And I'm already fucking fatigued. You know? Just by the few acts I've taken. Because I feel like, and this is the procedural step-heavy rules, everything I do, I have to look up. None of it's internalizing. And normally a game internalizes by the time I get through, you know, one game in the series and I'm several turns into the next. It's just not happening. It's just a fucking headache. Pieces of information within the rules that I don't think are on here. And again, there's so much information on these damn charts that it's hard to put all the information on it. But over here under cav chart special cases, if artillery or a stack is defending alone in a hex, it's treated as a class size C unit and checks to stand normally. Well, size doesn't really matter, does it? Does it? Doesn't appear to. So I don't know. Maybe they mean morale, but maybe not. The artillery unit, if forced to retreat, rolls on the gun loss table. Okay, that's what I was looking at. Successful. I missed something. The attacker does not roll for losses in combat result, regardless of the result. They only take the gunfire, and it makes sense. I'm not disputing it, but it's, you know, again, a special rule buried in all this stuff. Not even in a procedural setting. Not noted in the already very complex sets of charts. I think I see why Dean said, yeah, you know, if it's well received, whatever, fine, we'll try it. But because, you know, we've been putting resources into this for 10 years or whatever. But yeah, I just can't give this the thumbs up unless it's a killer sales. All right. So I find the gun loss tape, and I roll on there again, and none are lost. And then I retreat through here, and I bet you that hurts the morale of that unit. And then the cav blows. Again, I've spent a significant amount of time, and I've moved one piece. All kinds of stuff has happened. This is blown. It's moved already. It's back where it started from, and is confusing everything, of course. And I still haven't done my emergency withdrawal yet. And yes, this was weakened. I have to cross at the bridge because this is artillery. The burden is just way higher than I like. It ended up being pretty easy because the French line collapsed, right? One unit sent them flying. One gunshot sent them flying, and then a cav charge. But, you know, the proportionality of what we're looking at. Yeah, I had to move a lot of units. Okay, but that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's about the same. Moving all my pieces is about the same effort as doing a cav charge, right? It's not a big battle. Especially since I didn't really want to come charging forward. I was in shaken condition. I'm facing a couple heavy guns here. I'm a little worried about that. So part of the right wing is over here, threatening the bridge. I got Fremont's center, advanced guard center, thinking about crossing the stream, or the tributary, because, you know, I can. It'll disorder me, but everything else is kind of protected, and that'll put an interesting threat, maybe the French. I'll have to do something about that. We got Ott's forces pushing down here with the cav leading them. This is a threat against against Victor's Corps headquarters. If that gets stepped on, it's an automatic emergency retreat. So maybe I want to do an initiative check, possible loose cannon, which could involve, you know, crossing the stream, crossing the tributary and attacking. Who knows what that would do, right? But it sounds horrible for the French, but it might work. But yeah, he might want to try an initiative roll. He's pretty decent, and try to get out of there before he's forced to emergency retreat. And he might also want to just declare an emergency withdrawal because he's in danger of being surrounded. There's no question of that. However, having completed half a turn, it was a full turn. I did the French too, right? But yeah, I mean, we've seen the French line up here at Pedrobona collapse. Now, part of the problem is I had to pull the Ks out and stream them out here because there's so many units, so many different commands entangled together. I had to figure out where they were coming from, and then everything else is moving forward, including units that are kind of in reserve, but they're not yet. This is the same problem I had with Milas giving orders up here while they were in motion. I might have been better off waiting until they got to their await orders rather than send them more orders or go talk to them and replace their orders. That's kind of disturbing because what I'm saying is do what you're doing but continue, which doesn't feel like it should have the penalty, I guess, for having no orders. The no orders status, I think, was added in CWB as part of the defensive orders roles. This game has defensive orders, but it doesn't have defensive order failure for version 3, which was sort of the whole point of defensive orders was, yeah, you know. But yeah, so these guys, actually, I could have probably gathered them together at the Army headquarters and talked to them. I don't need to. I've got enough clutter and enough units going. What I forgot to do, though, was roll for my cav again. And now I got 3 cav to check. Up here. That is a 4. Trust me on that. And these others, and I hope they're all in command. There's just so many little commands in play in this one. That'll do. And that'll do. All right, so we recharged all our cav. Yeah, things do not look good for Victor, but it's time for breakies. Collapse at Pedro Bona. Ott's quick response of moving down. Wasn't able to get initiative. Initiative actually happens before attack stoppage, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But in this case, the emergency withdrawal is declared during attack stoppage. Victor's corps has run back to this crossroads. I wasn't able to get the initiative, so his forces take additional straggling and are marching away, but they're not safe. Ott's Cav can do charges on them. These forces are going to press forward. They'll stop at Marengo, but unless they get an initiative or something. Whew. On the bright side, it means Victor Lan, who's without orders, not... I keep saying Latrin because he's over in Montebello. But Lan and Murat are without orders back here. Oh, I should make an initiative check for Murat. It's not very likely. I think it's 54. Nope. And that's no effect. But they're going to be all kind of close together along with reinforcements that are coming in. So at least the French will have their forces together. And the piecemeal forces that Austria has will be difficult to react with. All those initial orders that, O'Reilly and who's the center? There's nobody in command of the center. O'Reilly's listed as right. Why? I'm not sure. If there was a right, I think he'd be in charge of it. There's a right division, which is kind of the thing, but like the units under the right, there are no units defined to the right. It's just his division, basically. But it would be possible to arrange a 2 or 3 wing army out of this using the way the game works. I think there's a center. Yeah, Zax is the center, if you have him. And O'Reilly becomes in command of the entire right. But yeah, it's the Austrian army organization, other than that left wing that Ott has put together somehow, is really not well organized. And that means that I'm going to be sending divisions in piecemeal for anything I do. On the other hand, there's not a lot I need to do left. I took Marengo, I took Castle Ceriola, which is fairly easy. Probably not press this. Spinetta's trivial. Villanova I can probably grab. And then the question is, well, let's position our units so that they're mutually able to defend each other and try our best to hold up against what Napoleon can throw. That left wing, operating as a corps, is my only really functional command. Everything else is like, oh, let's send this division to go do this. And that's going to be kind of a pain in the ass, but we'll see. Through the historical situation, and Victor had to give up Marengo. But he did so after a sturdy defense along the river line against the majority of the Austrian army, with Ott's force not intervening until around 11 a.m. or so, starting to come down. And that's when, and Lan was already in place as well, which, like I said, I had no way to get him there easily, because I could roll for initiative or whatever, but his forces are pretty damn battered, which makes them a lot less valuable. All he has is Watrin's division, and it's really each unit is just a couple of hits away from breaking because of the hit damage that I took at Montebello. And then, after falling back, Napoleon led an attack forward. Well, other than the fact that Victor took heavier losses than the Austrians did here in this scenario, I wouldn't feel too badly about giving up Marengo. But the thing is, I got my ass handed to me here. And maybe I shouldn't have been that far forward. That's where units are at the beginning. And it's hard once the Austrians came into contact with me, it's hard to get out. Also, the attack on the town was rather pivotal because that allowed the Austrians to take a hex and to really kind of undermine a hex that was anchoring them against cav attacks to some extent. And that really kind of weakened the French position greatly. But really the fact was there was one unit and its line extension holding against the entire Austrian force, and that's not good. I could have pulled them back, there's no question. Maybe I should have done it right away instead of letting the Austrians come forward, but I don't know what the historical is there. I kind of skimmed around looking because I was looking for, there's something that I remember in here that was like Kellerman's finest hour or Kellerman's finest day. And I thought it was a special rule or something. I don't see it. Maybe it's in the version 3 special events. But what do we have here? So here we have them crossing at 9 a.m. Oh. Yeah, I don't see anything that discusses what should be happening there. So that's kind of disturbing. Maybe the initial scenario talks about it. Frontal assault, it doesn't start until 9. And it looks to me (1412). Yeah, it looks to me like the French have withdrawn by the time that the Austrians come up. Not sure why, this scenario doesn't start until 9 with the Austrians. 7 and 8, 19. Mulling around over here. It feels to me like the Austrians are able to come on the board too early in the base scenario. And they just kind of were able to charge in and steamroller. Now, maybe instead of doing that, they would set up and conduct some preliminary artillery bombardment or whatever. But I consider that kind of foolish when you have obvious numerical superiority. You want to get close. You want to beat the stuff that's nearby. And as soon as I came in contact with the French, they were in trouble. Starting with the Austrians, at 9 a.m. I put so much emphasis on that, I don't know why. Probably the same reason people think I'm doing okay when I'm laughing. Yeah. All right. I'm doing a little better now. I have coffee. I have to hide less, maybe. I have an interview today. And the random events came up, and we got to delay reinforcements, but that only affects the Austrians. There were no new command failures, and I issued orders to the M division to move down to Spinetta. That's an engage order. When it's done with it, I can decide whether I fling myself into a defense or drop back into no orders and make things easier. But Milos has his work really cut out for him. He's going to be hopping back and forth, giving orders left and right. This ended up in D4. I'm just going to have so many damn orders for the Austrians. Again, this is like the first Bull Run scenario where neither side has a core formation. And they're just issuing orders to individual divisions all over the place. It does reflect the problems and what the core, were designed to replace, but it's just a royal pain in the ass to handle the command system in that way. I would, for that kind of command system, although this is a lot to change, if you were walking into, hey, let's retrofit CWB NBS to handle these special circumstances. For that kind of command system, I would prefer seeing something like Musket and Pike with its orders under chits and whatnot. But the problem is you need something that handles, France, who has a core system in this battle, Austria, who sort of does because Ott has this big wing. There are ways to do that in Musket and Pike, but, the majority of the battles are going to be operating under normal core. So, yeah, these early ones are just kind of funky, where the armies aren't well organized. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of offensive fire here because the French ran away. But, so we'll get moving, I guess. I made the decision to harass Victor and his functional unit with some cav. That turned out to be a mistake. The unit's high morale, had no problem standing. Therefore, I'm not going to get a successful charge. And then the break-off attempt, well, those are always iffy, and I failed it, which threw me over to the repulse, which could have hurt their morale, the infantry, but even with a minimal result, based on the defender being in line, I ended up getting, a hit against me. Being repulsed is just bad. You do not want to fail your break-off. And that's the most likely result, really, is that I'll fail my break-off and get hurt a little bit. So going against decent stuff that's in reasonable condition with the cav, not a good idea, even if it looks like, hey, this is just out there ready to be harassed. No, it's not. It's quite capable of busting up that cav pretty hard. Compare this to the Vive l'Empereur, where if square is formed, you always have the option to flee it. Again, that may not be as realistic. I think it's much more reasonable to say, hey, the cav doesn't always have an option to flee. The one question is, well, what about you get to automatically form square? Yeah, you sort of do. If you fail your check to stand, you didn't really create a square. You kind of broke, which is what both games are trying to represent. In Vive l'Empereur, you end up taking a morale hit, getting a retreat assessed on you, but the cav hits you first. I think one thing I screwed up, somewhere or another I had cav hit. They would have had possible follow-on attacks that I didn't do. Again, I'll try to remember not to fuck up as much up. But yeah, I'm not going to make any more cav attacks against regular units unless I have a very, very good reason. Harassing things as they're moving doesn't seem like a very good reason. If they're shitty morale, maybe. And with so much reaction, things pause. Ott's wing is forming up. Its goals are to attack Marengo. If the French leave Marengo, I'm not going to get the attack, but I can't go headlong into there. And I've deployed some artillery here. Unfortunately, I start moving the H division forward. Well, that's why Kellerman's here, turns out. Reaction charge. I thought you couldn't form a square when your reaction moved. I'm probably confusing VLE with this. Couldn't find anything about it there. I thought there was some rule, though, where you can't form a square at will. But I couldn't find it. Now I can't find my dice. Can't find my dice, Herc. Can't find my dice. Okay, so these guys are going to get a check to stand their C with a leader. I'm doing this because we haven't seen a reaction charge. They do, I don't think, maybe we have. They don't get to stick around and butcher the enemy if they win, though. That makes them less valuable. So that's a 3. I'm in the wrong table. That's a 3. This is wrong. So I'm at +1. And, oh, there's more. Okay. I succeed, which means Kellerman has to check to see if he can break off. And he's very good, but he's got A quality and he's a leader. Did leader count here? Commander advantage counted. They didn't get that. Kellerman would, but he doesn't. He just gets a, I have a commander. So I think I'm at a 2. Which means I get the break off, which means I roll here. The modifier is the attacker morale, which is A. That's going to be -2. If there were cannons, that means I'm more likely to get hit by the cannons. I don't know why that is. Okay. And so I just blow. Guess back here. And I don't feel like that did much, you know. It feels to me, if they couldn't have formed square, that might have been an issue. They would have been at a little bit more penalty to stand. There'd be a chance of a successful charge. But yeah, Cav is feeling actually pretty weak in this game. Certainly compared to VLE. Oh, I forgot to mention, I put this thing here. The old system used to have straggler recovery markers. I think they were on the back of the bloodlust counters. I know they were the same color. I don't know where that put the route markers, though. But you'd mark every unit that didn't move on a turn when straggler recovery was available, which was every other turn in the old system. And that would indicate that, you know, you have to remember. Here, I'm just marking this area to remind me, because when it comes down to that part of the game turn, I'm not going to remember which units moved and which didn't. I know that command is eligible to recover stragglers, and maybe I'll cheat in and do some movement if basically just facing changes. If anybody doesn't have any stragglers, but I think they all do. Here, and I view this as supporting an attack on Marengo. Leads charge against the fleeing routing 101st line. We got a leader loss check there. I would have been able to stand and butcher it, but instead it's just gone. And I don't remember how many turns it is. It's like 5 turns in advance that can start recovering stragglers. The skirmisher, I think, is allowed to duck out at this point, along with the leader. Unfortunately, the skirmisher is routed. And I don't know that I want to route another unit. Yeah, I think the skirmisher is going to get butchered too. Okay. So I get another roll on there. The leader is gone at this point. B or C, I'm at +1 because the attacker is large. and I get a 6, yeah, I'm going to kill that skirmisher off. Now, that was one follow-up charge. I got 2 more coming. I could hit this. This didn't have a chance to form square, so I might as well. One of those cases where I have to remember all kinds of numbers and stuff while I'm doing other things. So this still has 2 charges available. It just hit its second follow-up charge, so it has 1 more available. But as I hit this 43rd line, let's see. So check to stand on this. It's a B. Noticeably, there's no flanking modifier on this. There is one defending in line. If both flank hexes are occupied, it's, yeah, there's sort of a flanking effect there, but you could hit it in the rear and it still is able to defend. This is a column. It's a combat column. It's close enough to a square, and the point is the back end of that column can whip around and defend itself. I think that's what they're trying to express here. It's long turns. Charges are not, you know, lightning fast things. My battery is not charging. Yeah. So there's time to form maybe not a square, but at least some kind of defense, which is effective. So it looks to me like we're looking at a 2. I don't know, because no, I have a leader. We're probably looking at a 1, so this is dumb, but I did it. So now I make a break-off attempt, which is the B morale 4. I have a leader. I get to break off on this one. And I shouldn't have even made the attack. I'm coming from this hex, so 1, 2, back here. I can't tell which way these horses are facing. Okay. And now I have to remember also what I've moved and what I haven't when I take these delays and everything to jump in and handle one of these many close combats that are occurring during movement. This is the same problem NBS 2.0 had. Because close combat's an important part of Napoleonic combat, you should see a fair amount of it. Not as much as you do in this system, or in this version of the system, because under the old version, some of what's covered here was covered with that plink, plink, plink fire. I don't know if that plink, plink, plink fire is really all that. So I think what it shows is less of a all or nothing push, which is to say that units would come close and fire a devastating fire at close range. Long-range plinking was almost useless. You didn't have a lot of rounds, so commanders tended not to do it. And that's what you would end up seeing under the old version, is the Civil War period long-range shooting, which is more likely to kind of get you to the, you know, I took a hit here, a hit there, rather than this close to devastating range and possibly cause huge losses to one another by fire. But I don't know. I get kind of the feeling that, yeah, I mean, anywhere you go with that, it's like, because close combat really was such a local decision, whether or not, you know, you're going to charge with the bayonets. You're getting to a micromanaging if you were to allow this kind of heavy fire to be what happens at range 1. And then a differential between that and the actual charge. And here it abstracts away a little bit of what's going on in terms of, hey, once you decide to pull the trigger and go in for an assault, what does that mean? It's like, well, you don't know. The local commanders are handling that. You'll get your report back. Just like with a CRT, you don't know, right? The old system felt like it was giving more of a blow-by-blow representation of what the combat was actually happening. The problem is it was giving one that isn't correct, and the abstraction is more accurate and more historically believable, whatever. But it's got the argument I had with this game was it did two things. One, it was more historically accurate. Two, it was more streamlined. It's more streamlined in terms of the mechanical die rolls. In terms of the total effort and what you have to put forward, it is so much not. It is probably twice as expensive to do stuff. I don't know. And certainly a lot more expensive than VLE is. But again, VLE abstracts a whole bunch of stuff, and it gets you someplace that you're wondering why you're not just playing the Zucker stuff. Okay, so that's the end of the Austrian turn. This is where things ended up. Marengo mostly under their control, the French fleeing, Ott coming down. Melas is going to have trouble getting orders to his disparate command. Right now, he touched home and went to talk to these Cav. These guys are recovering. I'll probably need to get them moved somewhere. I don't know where. Just to get them closer to the front so that I don't have to write them orders that take forever for them to accomplish. And I'm fatigued, you know. Not a lot of units on the board. Not a lot in this game. But the new system is definitely very heavyweight in terms of effort. On the French side of the turn, they got a random event. And I mean, the only Kellerman one I see is Kellerman rides again. It's not what I remember it being. But anyway, I got, unfortunately, they split them by nation here. Ooh, telepathy. Bad ideas. It's a loose cannon result. And in this case, it's applied to Lon. It could be a lot worse. Victor could have gotten one, and that could have caused real havoc because I'm trying to get him the hell out of here. But with Lon heading, you know, who knows where. It's obvious where Victor's going. You probably want to send Lon somewhere where he's not really able to support Victor, for whatever that's worth. All right, well, other than that, Marat wasn't able to get initiative. I would pull him up to help try to do something for Victor. Victor's troops trying to disengage, not rallying this artillery. Go Victor with the artillery. I probably don't want him there. Let's get him up with these guys. Can't tell what's forward on these counters for some reason now. I don't know why. I didn't used to have this problem, but the Marengo has a different graphic. So Austerlitz has graphics similar to the CWB games. Marengo and Aspern-Essling have somewhat different graphics that I'm just less used to, you know. The Cav are probably the worst for me. Leaders don't really matter which way I face them. Anyway, let's do the Austrians before I lose my steam. And maybe we'll come to a period where there's a big pause. It sure looks like that we should. I see a lot going on here. I made no event. I made an initiative check for Ott. Didn't happen. I don't feel like these piecemeal divisions can really afford to do much on their own. They start off with good orders to attack Victor, and that would take you through the normal Marengo early part of the battle, where you keep fighting for Marengo. But having abandoned it, now I'm kind of left with, well, at least I'm on the defense because I have a lot of the point spaces already in the game. The big question being, hey, can I get this big 5-point space? And I think the answer is no. Let's just settle for the 5 points here, plus the 1 here, and maybe this one if we can get to it. And try to see what we're doing there. Meanwhile, Milos is giving more orders out that are delayed to additional units. We got recovery there. I may move my army command at this point because I'm kind of, well, see, I need to give K orders at some point, so I think I'll do that for next turn. I'm in no hurry to get my army up there. It would be great if I was right there and could give orders to someone like Ott and get them moving, but I can't. So I move over here to the K Division Command. I'm beginning to suspect what I think the guy who saw me do something wrong, but couldn't get it through to me what it was. I may have moved a divisional commander who has no orders to gather a couple of them together with, I guess, Lon to give orders to. There might have been one turn in the game where I did that and was able to fire off 2 orders in person verbal that I wouldn't have been able to. And it's against the rules, and I wouldn't have done it if I had noticed. But in my defense, the reason is I'm used to giving orders from the army to the corps level, where the leaders can move. There's something very problematic to the leader is bolted to the ground rule as a way of associating where your commands are, where your command is. And I may have also moved those leaders around for straggler recovery or something along those lines for the same kind of reason. Basically the idea is the leader just sits down, plops down, and does nothing. Now, if you have defensive orders in this rule set, that's no big deal at all. Your defensive orders are going to explain your perimeter. You're not bolted to the ground. If you have offensive orders, your commander is able to move because he's making those orders, or a move order or anything like that. The one time when you can't do anything under these rules is when you have no orders. And you're supposed to be able to kind of recuperate better with no orders. Maybe the bonuses for recuperating are because the leader can't move around, but it feels like, hey, you're in reserve, and that should be a bonus, and the leader should still also be able to wander around and help his troops. So from sort of a fundamental point of view of what's going on, a mechanism that was put in place because they didn't want to give divisional headquarters counters that would serve almost no purpose in most of the games, and so they just didn't define what that was, is getting in the way of what common sense would say would happen. So to some extent, when he said, well, you can house rule your game as you like, I could see making that house rule, to tell you the truth. I'm more likely to just bumble into making that error because I'm just not used to divisional commands that much. And honestly, I'm willing to take that kind of error, as you know, with most of my games. It's not a matter of not knowing the rules, it's a matter of not remembering them. Little difference. Like if you asked me, I would know about the bolting down. But if I have to apply it, I don't know it. Same problem with, if you ask me what things affect a melee or a close combat or a charge, I might come up with well, if you ask me if a specific thing did, I might have a very good chance of saying yes or no, and I remember that's kind of weird, but I can't remember the whole pile of things that affect it, right? It's too big a list at this point in this series. Now, in the older series, if you weren't playing with defensive orders, you had that bolt down a lot more, and it was much more problematic. And yeah, I think that it's a flaw in the game, and might end up disregarding it if I can figure out, a way of saying, yeah, here's where the command is. I mean, here's the thing. When things have no orders, I basically am not moving them. If they're in a position to recover stragglers and such, I'm not moving them. So it kind of doesn't matter where the commander is. It might change my positioning a little bit if I'm attacked and then I do bolt down in terms of, yeah, it's important that I do now. But I still don't see that as too big a deal. Anyway, lots of chatter there. Where am I? I'm trying to figure out if there's anything I can really do, and I think that Victor has gotten too far away from Marengo and is clearly running away for me to pursue without any kind of orders. This is a situation I got in Thunder at the Crossroads when I played it opposed. My opponent had basically pushed me out like this and kept coming, and I'm like, are you sure your orders let you do that? Because it's very easy. You're used to, we played Thunder at the Crossroads. We played Terrible Swift Sword at one point before that, a couple of times. And, the feeling is just, well, I've got you on the run, I keep going. Nah, in this system, you definitely can't do that. You need a local initiative to get your forces to do that. As opposed to, say, the musket and pike type system, where to pull back your attack, you probably need orders. Makes sense, actually, because forces were more likely to halt at this period after obtaining an objective rather than pursuing, whereas the momentum and the lack of command control and whatnot made continuing charges a real problem if you go too far before. I mean, certainly by Frederick's time, armies were more willing to stand in place, although Cavalry, a special case. But the thing that comes to mind, I got a support order over here with O'Reilly's right division or whatever. Is Marengo taken enough that I halt here? Do I get another turn of movement? I don't know. That's the kind of thing that, like, these kind of order writing games really put you in a bind with. And the Austrians set up a line, unlimber some of their artillery. As far as I'm concerned, pretty much everybody along here. Well, Ott still has orders because he was given orders as a wing. But so these guys, he's in a no orders position, but these guys can still move to get into place because Marengo has fallen, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody up here is out of orders now. I could throw them into a default defense, but it looks pretty obvious to me the French aren't going to turn with any ease. Victor could roll initiative and come rampage against me, but it's not in his best interests. That's pretty clear. So I think I'm going to throw everybody into no orders, which will help a little bit in terms of getting new orders once Milas makes his way up. But yeah, unlimbering those artillery doesn't do me any good because I didn't do it within opportunity fire range, which means when the French leave, they just run. These guys aren't moving forward, so I didn't get any shots off, even though, yeah. So under the older systems, you could roll your guns up, unlimber them, and fire, and VLE works the same way. That feels a little weird, right? So I really do like the pre-fire. There's just a lot about this version that I feel intellectually makes a lot of sense, but the actual implementation of it, I'm just struggling with the amount of effort it involves. So that puts me onto the French turn. I may take another one and get me up to, hey, we'll start the turns on the Austrians, because we're just going to be piddling around for a while, it looks like to me. I'll show you the order sheet up to this point. So the couple of units that have delays are the only ones that still have orders. So I've got X's running through all these things to indicate, hey, I don't have to read these, and I also cross out the order itself. This gets rid of some of the pleasantry of, the log of all the information. Like if I wanted to go back and try to recreate things, I'd have to read through these strikeouts, but it just helps me a lot with play. All right, well, let's roll for a random event, and then I have to think. I do not get one. I probably want to roll for initiatives for both Lon and Murat. I won't write the order because, well, so I can tell you what the order is in basis. For Lon, it's going to be, I think, to try to cover down near Casina Grossa. And for Murat, it's going to be to cover up here, defend Victor's right flank. Actually, that's how I'm going to word it, is to defend Victor's right flank, because that'll help in terms of falling back. So take a look at and I'll use blue first here. For Lon, I roll a 4. I'm not going to write these orders. Well, I'd have to write the defend order, but I never write the orders until I roll the initiative, because otherwise you just get a mess. Okay. No effect for Lon and Murat. I could get a loose cannon off these. That's always the danger. Well, almost, but nothing happens. So it's just going to be Victor pulling back more. It's us to 10 a.m. Now, one thing that I do really like about the overall effect of this game, this system, the brutality and force that the attacks represent, send units, units are wrecked by engaging. They are not in good shape. They don't have a lot of holding power, because once you're engaged and you fight, so many casualties, so many stragglers happen, that each unit probably spends very little time actually on the front, and the players are going to be more and more rewarded for having good reserves in place, which kind of helps the Austrians here, not just because of their numbers, but because one command isn't going to be able to move up there and just, hold the line and beat up on the enemy for a long time. So having all these separate little forces is of some value. It also is important at the brigade level, though, like having a reserve unit in your brigade when your line gets crushed by, the one attack that breaks through hard and really hurts you. Well, having something to throw in there and fill the line is going to be important too. Again, all that plinking that happens in version 2 feels more like the Civil War battles, where the units can stand in line and fire at each other at decent range for quite a long time, and they slowly wear each other down. This doesn't feel like that. This feels more Napoleonic, and it was, I think, always one of the big complaints about the old NBS versions, and then Vive l'Empereur sort of exemplifies that as well. It's like, how hard am I pressing this attack? There's no results that are really big in Vive l'Empereur. And because melee is so bad for the attacker in that system. You see nothing that looks, it just doesn't look like a Napoleonic battle in that sense. But it is pretty when the lines all form up, at least in the huge one that I did. All right. I've been on kind of a bad video game bender. First reading was taking up my life, then I found something horribly addictive but not fun at all to do. And haven't been playing. A post on Facebook by Mark McLaughlin, actually, War and Pieces guy, about the 14th was the day Marengo was fought on. And I'm like, that was the final trigger to get me back up here. Now I'm looking and I'm like, shit, I don't know where the hell I'm at. I hope and I think that it is indeed the Austrian turn. I got Milas ready to write orders up here, but let me check for events. Oh, we got one. All right. But the problem I'm seeing when I think about this is, if I want to write something like, stay here and rest, and then move to location X, that becomes, I think, a complex order. So I don't really want to do that. But I'll move him someplace. He's mostly there, mostly rested. Let's go through the first, find where the chart is, which is always a pain in the ass in this. Advance reinforcements. So if the Austrians had any reinforcements, they would come forward a little bit. This doesn't affect the French. The events generally affect you. So yeah, time to figure out the orders. And in addition, I've already got some orders. So like E1, whatever the hell that is, that's this Cav division, and M1 have orders. M1 has orders to go to, just trying to, Spinetta. This one has to La Fournice. I don't know where I want to put each unit, but the more units you have, the harder it is. Like, if you remember in Leipzig, in the VLE system, which has an order system to it, I had a hard time getting my line built correctly, trying to make guesstimates where something would have to go and just balancing that all out. Here, it's a smaller map, but I got a ton of little commands, and it's just as hard a problem. You know, hey, how much area can each one cover? Where's everything? Just picturing where everything's going and everything. You know, if I were taking the kind of effort that the commander and his staff would be, they'd have a map and they'd be marking, yeah, this is going here, this is going there. And I could do that, but kind of defeats the concept. It's one of the problems with order systems is setting up an appropriate defense. The attacks are usually much, much easier to set up. You don't often see in game systems, and I don't remember this being the case, but it may well be. Routed units don't get to move under these rules. Unless they, you know, if they rally, they get to move, and it kind of makes sense. They're unformed and whatever. But what it means is I don't have that continuous route. In a lot of games, there's the, hey, keep routing towards your line of communication or whatever. You're not going to just stand out there in front in a mob, and these rules allow for that, and I don't find that really appropriate. Anyway, Victor's trying to rally them. The Austrians aren't moving forward yet, but there's units with orders to go here that are on the move. That very soon will be pushing me back, and maybe making it so I can't rally another turn, etc. Back onto the Austrian turn. Milas is giving orders to his army this turn to get the headquarters moved somewhere. Need to look at those rules, see if there's any need that I write anything down. I might need to, if it It's going to take multiple turns because I think they're just move orders to a location, and I kind of know where I want to put them. I want to put them probably somewhere around here or something, but I'm not sure. Slipped up, moved some skirmishers forward as well, and plinked away at the artillery. Didn't do anything. That's fine. Doing recovery on units. Milos made it here. I think that's good enough. He got an automatic, he got a full acceptance on his orders. Anything else, I'd have to have written orders, and maybe I would have put him somewhere else, but that seems fine. My placement of Kellerman was not entirely wise, at least not with the Austrians moving here. This is not terrain I can charge into, and it was kind of screening my charge routes, so I couldn't even do a reaction charge on a morale check. Yeah, could have probably done it at this hex, but the guns will run. And a few things. Random event moved Napoleon forward, so he'll be on the scene soon, and that changes the issues completely. With Napoleon able to give orders, whatever, I might be able to press an attack somewhere. Again, I said Austrians are on defensive. I mean, they're advancing, but they're advancing into positions with the assumption that they will be on the defensive, which is why this is, it's kind of whacked, but Murat got initiative and pulled his way up here. Kellerman falling back. Now, I'm not sure how much Kellerman is following orders or what his orders are. He seems to be a purely independent force right now. I don't think that's actually spelled out in the Marengo rules. They're set up. He is part of Murat's division, but he sets up far away. And maybe I'm taking... let's see if Kellerman has anything. Yeah, Kellerman doesn't. 2 Cav is attached to 5th Corps. Now, or to V Corps. Technically, he should be getting himself into command, but it feels wrong. It feels like he should be supporting these guys. But yeah, I'm breaking the rules there. For anybody who's watching about that. Just because I wouldn't do it in an opposed game, but I can't in solo, in good conscience, say that Kellerman, who is sort of the star of this battle, the early part of the battle historically, would run away and not shepherd these routers, who I really think should be routing towards where they belong. No check this time. Lon, I forgot to move Lon for a turn, so I moved him twice this turn. He didn't get an initiative. May not want to keep checking, just because a loose cannon could put him even further away. Whereas very, very shortly, Napoleon's going to be on the scene, and the Austrians are obviously not, you know, able to quickly redeploy and take advantage of this situation. This was kind of a lucky shot that I came down this way. I think that's time to break now. Or with little change, although Lon tried for initiative. I know I was thinking about not doing it, but you know, I wander away and I forget. And got that loose cannon. It's not really likely. I mean, he's a good commander, only on 11 or 12, so I don't know. And is wandering even further away. I didn't want to throw him forward because that might be actually closer to what the French want. Keeping him out of the distance. Melas went over here to talk to Ott, and he's going to have the left wing. I may actually try to bring the entire Austrian army, starting with the left wing, against Victor. That is risky, but I feel like, you know, the Austrians not doing something more impressive after having flung Victor back is probably mistaken. And if we can get to here, we got a whole lot of points in the bank, right? The French really have a hard task in front of them if I can do that. Now, that's not going to happen. Continuing the conversation, monologue, and the leaders being able to move around, it's not just the corps leader who's not bolted down. All of his divisions that are under his command are not bolted down when you're under no orders. But these individual divisions are. So I cheated a little bit. I'm willing to let the divisional commanders stay on one of their pieces, which, you know, that's a requirement, and not pull them up to talk to Milas, wherever they are. He basically can only give orders to one unit at a time anyway, because he's so shitty. But that would be a serious hindrance to a higher rated commander who could give orders to a couple of units at once. If you take a look at the commander rating, Milas is a 10. Well, an oral order to do something is going to get you to 7. An oral general only gets you to 3. So he might be able to move his army a little bit better. But I feel like that's intentional, right? That's the command structure problem that's in place here. And so I'm not going to fudge that as much, if at all. But I did move Haddock from one unit to another in order to ensure a better result on the straggler recovery, which I think is important. This is the only straggler recovery. I just can't see, you know, a decent leader, one who can affect stragglers, being like, you know, I gotta sit right here. And the units could move, they could swap or whatever, but again, that would affect their straggler recovery timelines in a way that I don't think is appropriate. Next turn, Napoleon's due, and we'll see what the Austrians choose to do. It may be too much of a risk to go in here because Milas is not a great leader. Ott's pretty decent, but it may be a long time before I get started, and by that time, Lon may be down here or something. I don't know. It seems risky to me. My initial thought was to put him up here, protecting Castel Sariolo and this, which makes the command up here, the K division, which I was sending that way, mainly because it's the quickest place you can get to, as being maybe a little silly because the left wing will be there. I need the rest of the army to be more or less together. K is not that beaten up. It's taken some hits, but it's not in bad shape, unlike Watrin, who starts off because of Montebello so beaten up. And Gardon here is also pretty chewed up. All right. Of course, the next turn, Milas gave orders to Ott. Now he's moving down to talk to O'Reilly after touching base. Ott's orders are to head for Villanova. This is going to be interesting. Whoever this is, Morrison, got to his position. Hey, I forgot to roll my rally check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And we get it this time, which means we'll be moving very shortly. Napoleon coming on board. He's going to put whoever this is, Monnier. He's going to attach it to Victor. It has to attach to something. I feel like there should be some option to shift it back to Desax if needed, you know. But I don't know. It's not in the rules, so again, I'd be making shit up if I do that. Lon got his initiative, and instead of coming down to help support this, he's actually going to position himself at Castel Sariolo. The idea being, hey, if I make a strike here and here, assuming the Austrians don't move or whatever, I can roll up their whole flank. Unfortunately, Victor is not back to have a discussion with Napoleon yet. They don't give orders for where the Army Reserve is supposed to go, which is probably for the best. I assume, like with the MD, I can just assign that order on entry, and this is the right place for them right now. I don't know, maybe even up with Victor. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's move it up to Victor's corps. Put both headquarters in the same place. There's nothing that prevents that. With the addition of another division, Victor's force becomes quite a powerful little force. The one unit that got smashed up, Gardon, is beginning to de-straggle at a relatively high rate. I got 2 6s on it, so that's pretty good. Put this here. And I guess go back to whatever it is I do between turns. Not much happened. Milas gave his orders to O'Reilly and then had to touch base and couldn't get anywhere else. You can kind of inch a couple extra movement points by jumping off your base. I could have gotten to about here. But honestly, it's not that important right now, and I would forget which way he's heading. Lon continuing his movement forward. Victor receiving his reinforcements. I think the French are going to wait for Desaix for the overall attack. However, depending, on what happens here or whatever, with Lon moving forward there, Milas may want to give different orders to Ott's wing to go intercept them. His orders are to head up to here. That would create kind of a chaos, right? The French positioned over here, Austrians here. If that were to play out, I try to look at things and not pay attention to what the orders are. Every now and then I have to roll a die to make decisions, but I didn't feel like I had to here. Both seem to be making, decisions that were reasonable. Sometimes I like to swing around and take a look from the other side of the table. Can kind of give you a different view. Now, the problem with that view for me is Lon becomes kind of invisible there, and I'm just looking at the Austrian positioning more. So I don't know. What I did notice is the change in colors going across here, which one would think would reflect visibility rules. I can't find any for the Marengo scenario. I mean, presumably in sort of these areas, visibility would not be unlimited. I don't know how much of a big deal that is. Could have made some difference early in the morning, depending on how short they want to make it, right? But if it's like 5 or 6 hexes, it's really not going to make much difference in the game at all. So I don't know. I'm going to ignore it because I can't find any rule on it for this scenario. The Austrian side of the 12:30 turn, random event happened, killed Morzen, and he was one of my other decent leaders. I don't know if I have any 3s left. No. 2s are okay, but and we've got O'Reilly started following his orders. Milas has moved up to give different orders to Ott to try to deal with Lon's corps. They didn't start undertaking the earlier orders, so it's no big deal. Turn, Milas gave his orders to Ott and swept down to start moving Fremen other forces forward to create something like a line heading across, well, across here, I guess. But O'Reilly is in kind of a dangerous position as he moves forward, and Napoleon recognizes that and says, all All right, well, if he's going to start sending his forces in at me, which is what it looks like he's going to do, let's hit him first. And so I've got orders to move down the New Tortone Road as far as here. Victor hasn't started them yet, and you can see Lon is going to beat Ott to that victory point location. All right, I think that's enough. I thankful that I'm not downstairs where there was no light the way I was playing the VLE game, because it was just too big. It's nice to be somewhere where I can, when I can't sleep, come up and play the game. At least that helps some of the times. 130 E Division. Elsnitz is beginning its repositioning. O'Reilly's gotten to his location, and oh boy, does he look exposed. Meanwhile, Lon is taking up position outside Castel Ceriolo, which is, you know, a definite threat on the Austrian flank. So if we can hit a couple of these units that moved forward, then we can kind of work on a pincer movement there. But the Austrians have their things to do. De Sack's back here is an interesting case because he's a variable reinforcement. He isn't guaranteed to come in at any particular time. I think sometimes they have it. It's built so that it is assured, but I think this is not. Can't find it. Gonna have to look that up. Like there was a chart in the Montebello one that assured, you know, about an hour and a half range. There we go. Roll two dice each check. On a 9 or more, De Sax comes in. So he may not even show up all day. Which means the French have to make do with what they have and hope for the best, I guess. Which, given that the Austrians positioned themselves somewhere stupid, we're about to do. Fuck. So, I didn't notice O'Reilly had Cav here. I knew it before, but and advanced up against him. Then after I did all that, Kellerman launched a charge, wiped out the artillery. But I've got 2 follow-on charges. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take those against that Cav. It gets a chance to make a counter charge, I guess, even though it's being attacked from behind. It would get the roll. No, it's only from the flank, I think. God, it's so hard to remember all the little special cases. So I'm going to have to go back and study some stuff. But but yeah, that might disable this Cav, and I can say Kellerman made his charge ahead of time. Meanwhile, Marat was going around trying to do the same thing, but he couldn't. He didn't have quite enough movement points. And now I'm tied up in, hey, go look up rules for 15 minutes to try to figure out how I can rectify this. You know, what would happen if I had done this in the correct order? Because it's just so easy in these highly interactive, you know, all kind of opportunity actions and everything like that type games to screw something up. Now, if it looked obviously like Cav, which it would probably if O'Reilly wasn't on top of it, they are fairly obvious. As soon as I picked up the piece to see, hey, what's the morale of this? It was obvious. I wouldn't have a problem, but, you know, too many little units that I have to remember all the composition of all of them, I guess. I don't know. Just in case somebody's standing on top of something. I should have known this. Oh, well. My forgetfulness, the way I'm playing this out is the Cav got through the artillery, got countercharged. I chose to take it as the defender because Kellerman's morale is high. But interestingly, there's no modifier here for leadership quality beyond the, hey, are you a good leader, I think. Oh no, there was a commander advantage +1 for Kellerman. But still, an A was the base check here. They both actually rolled the same loss on the draw table, which was a 4, which did 2 hits to each, morale back 2, and they're both blown. This skirmisher won't get a fire because there's more skirmishers facing it. And I'll continue moving Victor up. And well, the game works really, really nice and smoothly as long as you don't have to fight. But the fights are more intense, causing more casualties, etc. And really, really so heavy a toll on my mental capacity to keep track of a lot of things at once. I snuck the consular guard cavalry behind the lines to charge it. It formed a square, the infantry there, and the cav was unable to break off, even with its A morale. It's not all that likely. Got over here to this nasty table, got a high roll, took a couple losses, a morale hit, and well, maybe the cost was too high to launch this attack. Cav versus infantry is so weak here. It's not being able, the difficulty in withdrawing, in breaking off the attack is, I guess, the biggest thing, because this can be devastating if you fail it. And even if you succeed, you might take a hit. But I got the unit in square for whatever that's worth, which gets me, I guess, some fire at some point, no? No, because skirmishers don't get opportunity fire. So it didn't really help me much. And we finish things off with the sacks coming on the board as Victor pushes forward. Brushing this aside, trivial, really. It will be. Riley probably should be looking at an emergency withdrawal to get the hell out of there, because he's not going to be able to hold that. The problem is, Milos has been giving orders to support this position. And gotta save Scout, man. And that's going to be somewhat problematic, because I'm going to see more and more units getting thrown into the meat grinder there, when the Austrians probably would have done their best to stand and hold the line that they were at and get the shit out of there. Just hold this line and try to hold Castle Ceriolo. Now they're looking at an ugly, ugly situation. Of course, I'll probably make Cav charges, thinking Cav should be useful in the battle. It's great against the limbered artillery from behind, you know, and routing units. And I mean, it might have been really valuable against Cav from behind. There's bonuses for that, right? If the Cav hadn't succeeded in making its morale check, which, I don't know, I probably used the check to stand table, because it looks like the morale table, but the actual morale table would have been a little higher. I'm pretty sure I got a high enough value. I don't remember what I got, but yeah. Depending on what I was looking on. But if I'm looking at something that looks like a morale table, and they're all over the fucking place, I think I found what I want. Unlike the gun table, which there's only one that looks anything like it, and it's really hard to find. Morale tables are all over the place. They say morale on them, right? So I'm like, oh, I got to make a morale check. That's the table. Yeah, no, it's not. It's hiding somewhere else, but maybe you'll use something that looks like a morale table at least. But Cav charge against Cav, The problem there would be what? Stationary cav gets a -2 to their die roll. So those Bs, instead of being at a 2, would have been at a 3 because they had a leader, which still probably would have led to the same kind of results. The ugly fight was against this stuff. And yeah, good quality stuff can form a square. The cav can't stop even if it's high quality. That's life. That's life in this game. You want to avoid using cav against infantry in this one. It feels wrong. It feels wrong, but maybe not as wrong as the way that cav operated in Viva l'Empereur. So I don't know. I'm almost tempted to pull out the 2.0 rules and try them out for Austerlitz because I know it's less painful, but I'll end up just standing there plinking at each other and it won't feel like Napoleonic combat then either. The situation has Milos in a panic. He leaves the M division here. He was planning on moving them forward because Ott has started moving up to take Lan on. I don't necessarily want to stop that. I outnumber Lan, but I've got to get a defensive line together to face Victor. To do that, I'm running up to give orders to H division, which basically has orders to move to here. That was my intention. I wrote them poorly, but I wrote them to say, move to around Old Tortone Road. The intention was north of the line that was forming. I don't think I can violate the intention. It's one of the advantages of playing solo is if I write shitty orders, I know what I meant, and I'm not going to try to bullshit myself around them. But what that means is that the advance guard center is still sitting on a landmine of orders. I would have liked to have gone and gotten them first, but these guys activated. I'm going to let Ott do what he does, hope he beats Lan's relatively weak force, and then I can bring him back. But I don't know. Because between Victor and de Saxe, I'm facing a hell of a stronger force than what I could assemble even if I could get it in a reasonable line. Meanwhile, O'Reilly did an emergency withdrawal and did not straggle. Again, he only has 1 infantry, so I'm letting him flee, but that's going to put him out here in the front. I'm going to have to go talk to him and get him somewhere else. Meanwhile, these guys are just sitting up there in D6, I think. Yeah, not bothering to do anything in the battle so far. And, you know, I could write them orders or something, but right now I'm relatively busy. And I can only write orders from my army command, which I wasn't at. I was off trying to rally troops. So things are looking really hairy for the Austrians. I probably should have just settled down with what I had at some point. I don't know when, because here's the thing. Once I pass through here and set up this line, I had a nice defensive line and maybe could have refused a flank, but there's danger. The French could have sent Lan up this way or something, so lots of difficult situation to deal with there. Let's see if Napoleon can take full advantage of the situation. He should be able to. He's got a much more effective and flexible command structure. And he's got de Saxe up with him that he can throw him some orders. Well, de Saxe apparently has been marching too hard. He got a D5 on his delays, so he's not going to be moving very much. I pushed forward, hitting the back of O'Reilly's infantry here. No fire to begin with. There'll be a counterfire from the skirmisher. but I couldn't get close enough to actually hit. I'm never sure if you want to actually move in on somebody in this system. In the old system, you would, because you'd get opportunity fire from people leaving. Here, though, the skirmishers don't get opportunity fire. Murat, though, making a charge against O'Reilly. O'Reilly basically is fucked. I checked his stand, and he did not succeed because he's being hit, disordered. He can't try to countercharge because of that. I think we're both like Cav. Oh. Yeah. But the defender's blown. He's being hit in the rear. It matters here. Doesn't matter on the close combat. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So if I hadn't formed that square, I would have been in trouble. But being in a square, it was fine. And that's the whole thing. Being attacked from the rear just takes away your option. You have to try to form square if you can. So we're going to be doing what here? French will roll the white die against the French. Both size, no, they're not both small, they're both large. And there's no modifiers on this, but there are bullets for winning. Okay. And this is the thing, a leader would mean a lot in the old system. But it doesn't so much here. That's going to be 2 hits and a rout. But I'm allowed to keep chopping them up. So they're going to be in some trouble. Trouble indeed. They were butchered. Totally destroyed. At no losses to Murat's force, so like I said, sometimes there's dramatic effects. Now, I still have these units to move. I moved those. So I'll follow them up. And oh, what are Lon's orders? Lon's orders are to defend. He'll probably throw himself into line since he's got an enemy coming at him. And that's the end of the road for the 2:30 turn. France is in pretty damn good position. Oh, I forgot to check that skirmisher fire. Cool, they succeeded. 44th line took... wasn't very likely. M1 and a straggler loss. Okay. The M1 actually sticks because I'm not far from the enemy. Now, under the old system, I think you could be in contact with the enemy and still recover morale, but you can't here. If you're in a zone of influence, you can't. And I get a morale, what was it, 44th, I think? I don't know. I'll catch it up. But yeah, things look pretty ugly for the Austrians at this point. The blow hasn't hit yet, so we're not sure. Luck could play a big part in it. But I think this is a good point to send it up because I'm going to have huge headaches as these attacks start actually landing.